My current favorite fragrances are the ones I've been wearing a bit more than the rest lately. So what makes a fragrance my current favorites when I wear up to 4 fragrances a day? Even though I try to rotate my way through my different scents, I do have a tendency to sort of obsess about a particular scent every now and then. It could be a fragrance that I recently bought. I do tend to use recently purchased fragrances a bit more than the rest, and I have at least 2 of those in this video. It could also be an old favorite that I simply can't stay away from, and sometimes it's a fragrance that is sort of similar to something else, but that gives me that something else with a fantastic twist. So I wear anywhere from 1 up to 4 fragrances a day, and I pretty much always go by a combination of mood and occasion. The current season is usually something that sort of play a part in what I'm reaching for, and I'm currently enjoying fragrances that have a bit of depth to them and a bit of warmth to them. So before I begin, please drop a like and make sure you subscribe and make sure you comment. Are there any fragrances in your collection that you sort of have been obsessing about lately? So it's been about 2 months since I did my last current favorites, and about 4 weeks of that was spent in the tropics, where I pretty much mostly used Guerlain L'Homme cologne. What an absolutely fantastic scent this is. Ken's Homme, this is the Marine Fantastic. Jean-Paul Gaultier Le Beau Paradise Garden, I absolutely love that one, and the OG Le Beau. I've already talked about these, so I'm not going to talk about them in this video. So after my time in the tropics, I was looking at my fragrances, trying to choose which would be the first scent that I would wear after having used mostly freshes for about a month. And the moment I saw it, I knew, okay, this is exactly the one I want to wear. And about an hour after I sprayed it on, when I was at the supermarket, I felt someone sort of hovering around me, and when I turned around there was this woman, and she said, okay, something smells really good, can you please tell me what it is you're wearing? This thing might not be something revolutionary, but to me it's absolutely intoxicating, and it's a wicked compliment here. So Invictus Victory Absolu opens up with what I think is quite a smooth dose of spiciness, then it moves into something that to my nose is quite intensely ambery. You get a gorgeous ambery warmth and shine, and when it hits the dry down you get a super smooth dose of sandalwood. So it's woody, ambery and spicy, and there's a bit of sweetness in here as well. However, if you compare this to Invictus Victory, I do not feel this is as intensely sweet. So Invictus Victory Absolu could almost be described like a mix of Invictus Victory without the lavender and Invictus Victory Elixir without Elixir sort of a tropical vibe, and without the vanilla that both of these have, and instead with a prominent dose of smooth woodiness. So next up we have one of my fragrances for life. I absolutely love this thing right here. It's an epic compliment getter, and Le Male Parfum is basically all about a spicy kick in the opening thanks to cardamom. Then you get that attractive Le Male vanilla, and the whole thing starts to get quite powdery and softly sweet, but you also get the lavender from the original Le Male, bringing the whole thing a fantastic contrast. So one way to describe Le Male Parfum is that if you would take the vanilla and lavender from the OG, strip away pretty much everything else, add a spicy kick with cardamom, and make the whole thing more powdery. So I've talked about Le Male Parfum so many times before, so I'm not gonna say that much more, other than that I absolutely love it. And this is something I've been reaching for a bit more than the rest lately. So next up we have one of the new ones that I bought, and when I was at Journal trying out their different scents, this was one of them that pretty much right away caught my attention. And what caught my attention was that it opens up with a gorgeous dose of fruitiness thanks to cherry, together with a bit of smooth creamy vanilla. As it dries down, the whole thing turns quite intensely ambery. You get gorgeous ambery warmth and shine, and the dry down introduces a bit of smooth sandalwood. So yeah, I basically bought Nang Ram from Journal because of its fruitiness, that cherry. I really don't have a lot of fragrances with a focus on cherry. This gives me a fantastic sexy dose of cherry together with a really nice dose of creamy warm vanilla, and the whole thing is gorgeously ambery warm. When I was standing there buying this, holding and smelling the test strip, I couldn't stop thinking about the scent itself. I knew I had something similar, and I finally remembered what it was. Nang Ram definitely has Rabanne Major Me vibes. Major Me is without a single doubt one of the very best Rabanne has ever released. So underrated. No idea why they discontinued this thing, but I'm so happy that I bought Nang Ram, which sort of gives me Major Me vibes. So moving on to this thing right here, and this is my second most favorite in the Armani Stronger With You line. I'm gonna link to my Armani Stronger With You comparison somewhere up here and in the description below, so make sure you check it out. This to me is a mix of that core Stronger with you DNA with vanilla and an aromatic side, but to my nose this opens up quite intensely spicy, and the Dryden has a gorgeous dose of sweet tobacco with vanilla, and it's also quite ambery. And I do feel Strong With You tobacco is incredibly well made, and actually even though it focuses on a combination of tobacco and vanilla with a bit of sweetness, I actually feel this is quite well balanced. And one way to sort of describe Strong With You tobacco is that if you would mix the OG Strong With You together with a bit of Strong With You Absolutely and a bit of Parfums de Marly Herod, then you sort of get this. Absolutely gorgeous and definitely one of my current favorites. So next up we have this thing right here, and this definitely reminds me a bit of the epic compliment Valentino Uomo Intense. There are some similarities for sure, but this doesn't have the vanilla and sweetness that Uomo Intense has. Bleu Noir Parfum is powdery and woody with musk, and what I feel is quite a smooth and soft dose of leather. There's a bit of freshness in the opening as well, and that's another thing I feel sort of separates these two. This is one I crave, something that's powdery, but something that's not too heavy or too sweet. So moving on to another one that I recently bought. This opens up with a bit of freshness, and then it moves into the heart, where I feel the whole thing gets a bit floral. But the Dryden is my absolute favorite part of it, where I feel the whole thing changes into a scent that mostly focuses on a creamy, smooth dose of sandalwood, a bit of musk, and a soft dose of leather. So I absolutely love the scent of leather, but I'm actually glad that the leather in the Speakeasy is taking a backseat to everything else. And to me, this is basically a fantastic mix of freshness, woodness with soft leather. I like this one so much that I bought a backup bottle of it. So next up we have this thing right here, and this is another one of my fragrances for life. This sometimes gets a bit of hate in my comments, but I absolutely love this thing. What an epic, incredibly well made blend this is. A blend I feel is also full of contrast. So this thing opens up with quite an intense dose of spiciness thanks to nutmeg and saffron. And the more it dries down, the more the whole thing turns quite woody and woody. So it's woody and woody with a spicy kick, and it's musky. I don't know exactly what it is in Oud For Greatness that gives it this beautiful warmth. Maybe it's the combination of nutmeg and saffron. I don't exactly know what it is, but what I do know is that Oud For Greatness has an epic dose of lavender. That lavender in here is bringing this otherwise quite woody and spicy scent a gorgeous dose of contrast. I know some feel Oud For Greatness is extremely similar to Parfums de Marly Haltane, and yeah, I do agree. There are definitely some very clear similarities between the two, but I do feel Haltane is more sweet, and I also feel there's a twist to its spiciness. Haltane is definitely a bit more sweet, whereas I do feel this is more spicy. I did a battle between these two. I'm gonna link to that video somewhere up here and in the description below. You can hate on Oud For Greatness all you want, I do not care. To me, this is fantastic. So moving on to another sweet tobacco for men. These two, however, are very different. So Givenchy Gentleman Society Ambrée has the vanilla, Narcissus and vetiver from the OG, and it's a woody, vanillic and a bit floral. But the twist to this flanker is that they added pear balsam and sweet tobacco and toned down the floral side of it. So one way to sort of describe Givenchy Gentleman Society Ambrée is that it's almost like a mix of the original with a combination of vanilla and woodiness, but with a toned down floral side, and the tobacco from Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanilla. Kinda like that, but with a twist. You basically get this mix of rich woodiness, warm tobacco, sweet vanilla, and a bit of the floral side from the OG. This is definitely the more bold and daring version of the OG. So next up a fragrance quite a few feel has strong Parfums de Marly Carlisle vibes, and while there are some similarities, I also feel there are some clear differences. So I don't have a lot of fragrances with plum, but this one has plum in it, and this on my skin opens up with quite a prominent dose of incense and spiciness with a fruity sweetness to it. I'm very sensitive to incense, and it's gotta be done in my way, but this is incense done in what I think is a really nice way. The opening is good for sure, but it's the dry down that I think is the absolute best part of it. The incense in here really goes quite soft in the dry down. You get the fruitiness of plum mixed with a bit of sweet vanilla, and the dry down also has a dose of what I think is a very smooth and almost creamy leather. This is when I crave leather, but leather done in a very smooth way, giving room for a bit of fruity sweetness. So moving on to another sweet tobacco, and this is absolutely epic. This is so good that it's one of my fragrances for life. Intoxicating, extremely attractive, and an epic head turner. And even though I mentioned it when I talked about Armani Stronger with your tobacco, there are definitely some similarities between these two. I do feel there are some clear differences. Hero to me is without a single doubt one of the world's most attractive tobacco scents ever made. And to me it's mostly a combination of warm tobacco, sweet vanilla and musk. And the whole thing is spicy, warm and a bit sweet. This is probably one of the most addictive versions of that sort of a signature Parfums de Marly vanilla. I will always have a bottle of the gorgeous Herod in my collection. And to me this is absolutely perfect for date nights. So next up a fragrance I've been going back and forth with. This is something I initially quite enjoyed, but then I just stopped wearing it for a while. But I decided to give it another chance and now I really enjoy it. So I believe it's the master perfumer Alberto Morillas that's behind this one, and this to my nose is mostly a woody scent with a focus on cedar, and it's a bit amber warm with an aromatic touch. Cedar Malaki has a very smooth dose of woodiness to it. It does have a bit of freshness in the opening and it's definitely a bit ambery. This goes in a classy and elegant direction that I feel is quite different if you compare it to most other fragrances released nowadays. I know some feel Cedar Malaki is extremely similar to Chopard Black Incense Malaki, and while there are some similarities, I also feel they are a bit different and there are some clear differences. Black Incense Malaki is a lot darker, definitely a lot smokier and with a different kind of woodiness to it. Cedar Malaki to most people, including myself, will be a scent that is a lot more wearable and it has grown on me a lot lately. So next up we have a fragrance I feel is absolutely fantastic, and as you can see I put quite a dent to it. And to me it's basically a mix of freshness, florals and woodiness. The opening is gorgeously fresh and bright, and as it moves into the heart of it, it starts to get a bit more sort of a floral, and the drawdown is basically a combination of woodiness and musk with what I feel is quite an airy and fresh kind of powderiness. This to me is like lazy Sundays in a bottle. This is class and elegance, but class and elegance done in what I feel is a casual way. Another way to sort of describe Bottle Frick from Byredo is that this is effortless elegance. I do not like the price tag on these, but the scent itself is gorgeous. I would absolutely love to know which fragrances in your collection have you been reaching for a bit more than the rest. Drop a like and subscribe. Make sure to check out my other videos over there.